Welcome to The Explainer. If you're a focused learner who loves getting straight to the messy, fascinating truths behind the stories we've all been told, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, our goal is simple. We're going to strip away Hollywood's shiny, romantic veneer to reveal the chaotic and truly captivating realities of history. We've been fed this diet of polished myths for way too long, and honestly, the unvarnished truth is just infinitely more interesting.
Because what if history's greatest myths were literally just incredibly successful PR campaigns? Today, I'm asking you to reconsider everything you think you know. Forget the majestic, flawless gods of antiquity. Forget the chivalrous knights in shining armor, and definitely, please forget the idea that historical women were just passive bystanders sitting around in flowing dresses. The real stories, they are packed with wild dysfunction, absolute misery, and fierce defiance.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our structural roadmap for today. First up, Olympus, a dysfunctional family. Second, the brutal medieval reality. And third, women who rewrote history.
Section 1. Olympus, a dysfunctional family. You know, we usually picture the Greek gods as these divine paragons of virtue and cosmic order, perfectly sculpted in pristine white marble. But if you actually read the source material, the ancient pantheon maps perfectly onto a highly toxic modern corporate structure. Think about it. You've got Zeus at the top as the CEO, a guy with absolute power and absolutely zero boundary issues, constantly creating massive PR nightmares. Down in middle management, you've got Hades. Contrary to pop culture, he wasn't really evil. He was just an incredibly tired goth workaholic stuck managing the endless logistics of eternity. Then there's Athena, the strategist. While the war god Ares was basically a chaotic bar fight, Athena viewed conflict like a spreadsheet, pure, efficient logic. You've got Hermes as the over-caffeinated IT guy who solves problems but might steal your wallet, and Dionysus, well, his entire existence is literally an HR violation waiting to happen. When you look at them like this, they become instantly and kind of horrifyingly relatable.
So, the crucial point is that the gods' temper tantrums, their affairs, and their jealousies didn't just stay up on Olympus. They had horrific consequences for everyday mortals. Demeter literally shut down global agriculture, causing mass famine just because she was grieving her daughter. Poseidon, he would level entire cities with tidal waves simply because someone forgot to say thank you. Aphrodite started the entire Trojan War just to win a divine beauty contest, and the collateral damage from all this was devastating. Take Medusa. She was a mortal priestess violated by Poseidon in Athena's temple. And how did Athena handle it? She punished the victim by turning her into a monster. Or Psyche, a mortal girl whose only crime was being pretty, earning her impossible, deadly trials from a deeply insecure Aphrodite. The gods weren't protectors, guys. They were massive hazards.
Moving right along to Section 2, the brutal medieval reality.
Let's pivot sharply from the celestial drama of the heavens right down to the literal dirt. We all know Hollywood's version of the 14th century, right? Chivalrous knights, candlelit grand feasts, sweeping romances. But the reality of waking up in, say, 1325? It meant waking up on a rotting straw mattress completely covered in fleas. Your morning routine involved relieving yourself in a bucket, opening a window, shouting "Gardy Lou," and chucking that bucket right into the open sewer that doubled as your street. It was a cold, public, and incredibly foul humiliation ritual just to start your day.
And breakfast? Yeah, forget the grand feasts. You were eating pottage. It sounds quaint, but it was basically this thick, gloopy stew simmering for weeks on end, where new mystery ingredients were just dumped right on top of the old ones. It was a survival mechanism, not a meal. And to drink? You certainly didn't drink the water. It was teeming with parasites. So peasants and even little kids drank small beer for breakfast. You chewed on bread so hard it could probably deflect arrows, bulked up with sawdust just to make the flour last longer. You didn't eat for pleasure back then. You ate just to survive until sunset.
Now, if you got sick from that mystery pottage, medical care was essentially polite torture. Step 1 was usually diagnosing a humor imbalance, like, oh, you clearly have too much blood. Step 2, the local barber surgeon, yes, the exact same guy who cut your hair, would bleed you out using unsterilized iron hooks or a jar of hungry leeches. And step 3 was pretty much just praying for a miracle. Germ theory wasn't a thing. Toothaches were treated with rusty pliers and absolutely zero anesthesia. Going to the doctor was often way deadlier than whatever disease you actually had in the first place.
And the grim statistics absolutely back this up. Nearly 50% of all children died before they even reached the age of 5. If you miraculously managed to survive childhood, congratulations, you were put to work in the fields by age 5. By the time you hit 25, your spine was totally wrecked from manual labor. If you lived past 40, you were considered a statistical marvel. Life wasn't some majestic fairy tale. It was a brutal, slow-motion endurance test against famine, disease, and the crushing weight of feudalism.
Section 3. Women who rewrote history. Having seen the grim reality of daily survival, let's shift our focus to something truly awe-inspiring. I want to introduce you to 3 historical women who looked at the brutal male-dominated parameters of their times and utterly refused to accept them. Take the incredible, improbable rise of Catherine the Great. She started out as an obscure 14-year-old German princess named Sophie, dragged to Russia as a pliable little pawn to marry the immature heir, Peter. But guess what? She was nobody's pawn. She learned the language, she devoured Enlightenment philosophers like Voltaire, and she quietly cultivated powerful allies. In 1762, she orchestrated a bloodless coup against her own husband. A foreign-born woman with no legitimate claim took the Russian throne without fighting a single battle. That is staggering political brilliance.
And the results of her rule: 200,000 square miles. Let that sink in. That is the sheer scale of the territory Catherine added to the Russian Empire. She conquered with armies and colonized with ideas, establishing Russia as a true, formidable European powerhouse. She ruled with an unapologetic grip on history, completely separating emotion from governance. She controlled her empire, her political alliances, and yes, her famous parade of younger lovers entirely on her own terms. She didn't just wear the crown, she completely redefined what it meant to deserve one. Let's move to and see how this builds into an entirely different ancient world. Picture this. It's 1994, deep in the sweltering jungles of Palenque, Mexico, and archaeologists make a stunning discovery inside a sealed Maya pyramid. Inside, they find a stone sarcophagus where absolutely everything is saturated in cinnabar. This is a highly toxic, brilliant red powder that symbolized blood and cosmic transition. And lying right there in that vibrant red cloud was the skeleton of a woman. They ended up calling her the Red Queen. Her tomb was placed right next to the legendary king, Pakal the Great, and she wore this delicate jade mosaic mask meant to protect her identity in the afterlife. The massive amount of toxic cinnabar proved she was deeply, deeply revered. But the most haunting part? There was no name inscribed anywhere. Yet the evidence is overwhelming that Maya women were not just silent, pretty consorts. Her lavish, richly complex burial right beside the king proves that royal women were cosmic partners, priestesses, and political power brokers who held immense spiritual weight in their society.
Finally, let's jump forward to 20th century Mexico to follow the iconic Frida Kahlo. In 1925, when she was just 18 years old, a horrific bus crash completely shattered her spine, her leg, and her pelvis. In the chaos, she was covered in gold dust from another passenger's pouch, which is just this brutal poetic metaphor for the art that would eventually emerge from her trauma. Bedridden in a full-body cast, she began to paint. She took her physical agony and transformed it into a revolutionary visual language. This led to massive exhibition success in Paris, and eventually she arrived at her first solo show in Mexico via ambulance, literally greeting guests from her hospital bed. I mean, talk about an entrance.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly who she was. When the famous artist André Breton tried to box her in and claim her as a surrealist, she completely rejected the label. She famously said, "I never painted dreams, I painted my own reality." She painted her physical pain, her chaotic marriage to Diego Rivera, and her fierce pride in her indigenous Mexican heritage, proudly wearing traditional Tijuana dresses. She refused to sanitize her suffering. She made the world look at it, completely unapologetically.
I want to pause for a second and just consider her final diary entry before she passed away at age 47. She wrote, "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return." It is so incredibly poignant, and really, it anchors this entire theme of resilience and defiance we've been talking about. Like Catherine the Great and the Red Queen, Frida Kahlo suffered, but she absolutely refused to disappear. She lived in the margins and turned them into center stage, leaving us a legacy of pure, unvarnished truth. So what does this all mean? Well, this brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. We've seen how history scrubs away the chaos, the diseases, the petty gods, and the fierce realities of real women to hand us a comfortable, romanticized fairy tale. So ask yourself, if history's reality is actually this messy, how will the future romanticize our present? What parts of our chaotic reality today are going to be smoothed over into a neat little myth 1,000 years from now? Keep questioning the narratives you're handed, keep digging for that truth, and never stop learning. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.